Hello and welcome to another episode of the Reality Focus podcast. I am your host and development practitioner, Stephen Richards. So, guess what? Today we are going to have a very interesting discussion. We will be analyzing the US November 2024 general election from a development perspective. So, we will put it on our development lens with the hope of gaining insights on lessons that can be applied to particularly Jamaica as Jamaica approaches 2025 election here. Now, I want to preface our conversation by saying a part of what I do as a development practitioner is to help community groups make progress with their development agenda. And so, whenever I enter into a community, the first thing that I want to discover or to understand is what is that felt need? What is that felt need in that particular community? Now, a felt need is a need that is so significant. It affects a large section of the population that it moves them into action. Now, whenever you enter into a community, there are varying needs, there are varying issues. The young people has an issue, the senior persons has an issue, and the middle age has issues. And so there are always varying amount of needs and issues that one has to contend with. But you cannot address all those issues at once. And so my main intention is to look at what is that issue that is most impactful on a significant number of the population within a community. And when I discover what that issue is, then I will build the project around that issue or the campaign around that issue. Because why? It will motivate the greater portion of the population into action. Now, on the other hand, you can choose another issue, but the problem with not selecting a felt need is that you may run the risk of getting the support only of a segment of the population. Why? Because the need is not so impactful, is not so far reaching. It only impacts a particular rather geography, demographic of that population. And so what you want to do is to ensure that you select a felt need. Now, having understand that a felt need is what is going to motivate people into action, let us now bring back our attention to the US election, recently concluded presidential election, where Donald Trump emerged as the 47th president of the United States. And we're going to analyze whether or not what are the issues that the two candidates ran on, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And we're going to see if there was a felt need that allowed Donald Trump to emerge as the winner. Now, so for purpose of our conversation, let us just briefly summarize the main policy focus of Kamala Harris as well as Donald Trump. So here is it. Harris emphasizes reproductive rights, social justice, and climate change. Mhm. Aiming to protect abortion access, advance racial equity, and promote environmental regulations to address climate change. Now, on the other hand, Trump's platform centers on economic revitalization through tax cuts and deregulation, border security, and the idea of America First trade policies. His focus was on economic growth through reduced government intervention, stronger immigration controls, and tariff-based trade policies to counter China. Now, when you look at the campaign focus of Donald Trump in comparison to Kamala Harris. One of the first observations that I make is that Kamala campaign tend to focus on a particular demographic rather, of the US population. So so her main focus, based on what I've read here, climate change, abortion, access, reproductive rights. And that issue, I believe, was not, or those issues rather, were not as significant in the sense that it affects the greater percentage of the population across the US. I think from my own analysis is that it affected rather a particular geographic or demographic rather of the United States. On the other hand, Donald Trump spoke about economic revitalization. Now, in times when things are tough, in times when things are hard, everybody is feeling the economic pinch. And so they want to ease their pain. And so Donald Trump, in campaigning on economic revitalization, was a felt need because it affected a significant amount of persons in the US. And because it affected a significant amount of persons in the US, we have seen the results of the general election where Donald Trump emerged as the winner in a convincing manner. Why? Because Donald Trump spoke of having a border, and for the US citizens, or the greater proportion of US citizens, that speaks to securing our borders. And that resonates with them because security is a felt need. He talks about economic revitalization, that is a felt need because it impacts just about most persons in the US. And so that motivated the populace to vote in such a convincing manner that Donald Trump emerged as the 47th president of the United States of America. So, as Jamaica approaches the general election for 2025, it is very important that our leaders focus their attention on what I call felt need. A need that is so significant that it impacts a large section of the population. May I submit to you that majority of Jamaican economy is doing, fairly good, just opposed to where it is coming from. We have managed some amount of macroeconomic stability. But the big question that is often lingering is how much of this macroeconomic stability is impacting the middle class and what we call term the small man in the street, those that are living in the rural area. Because I'm a big advocate, because poverty is pronounced in the rural area. How much of this macroeconomic development is impacting the lives of these ordinary Jamaicans and citizens? And I submit to you that it is not much. Now, I understand that macroeconomic stability is very important even before you transcend into what we call microeconomic stability for the smaller man and the smaller man of Jamaica. Just about the ordinary citizens of Jamaica. And so, what will be necessary to be articulated is a plan of how you plan to increase the lives and livelihood of the ordinary Jamaican. That plan is yet to be articulated. And I really believe that whomever will emerge as the candidate of choice for the 2025 general election that is outstanding will be the person that articulates a plan for the ordinary Jamaican. How can I make progress and access? And how can access be granted so that I can improve the quality of my life? Now, I want to bring in another perspective here from Professor Clayton Christensen. May God bless his soul. He speaks of a theory that is called jobs to be done. And the jobs to be done theory simply states that in your life and my life, there are needs that arises from time to time. And we employ the best fit or the best tool to address those needs. Now, the question is, what are the needs that arise from the ordinary Jamaican? Because whatever solution is proposed, they will be selecting among those solutions which is the best vehicle, which is the best plan, which is the best tool that can address the needs of the ordinary Jamaican. And so, according to Maslow hierarchy theory, he says that human beings have basic needs that must first be accounted for: water, food, clothing, shelter. These are basic needs that must be accounted for before you even reach to self-actualization. I am of the view that a significant number of Jamaicans, they are plunged in a means of survival. So much survival that they can't even focus on development. They can't even focus on advancing their community, advancing the national development. Because guess what? They have not settled the need of survival. Access to economic stability, access to upward mobility is so difficult, even when they have done all that society said that they should have done. So they have gone to university and at least they have a degree, but they can't get a job. And so the question now must be, whomever will be that candidate, is how will you develop a plan that focuses more so on the deployment of Jamaica's human capital resource? That must be integral in your plan, because you have all this over excess or human resource, so much to the point that we have one of the largest number of brain drain in the world and in the Caribbean. So the question is not that we are not producing of skill set, human capital. We're producing in comparison to what we saw in 1962, where Sir Arthur Lewis states that in that period, 1962, what we have was a significant number of our population not having any skill set, the right skill set for economic advancement. But today, fast forward, we have seen a change in development, a change in the pattern where a significant amount of our population is exposed now to higher education, is exposed to access to education through YouTube and various social media platforms. And so the big question must now be, how do I now deploy this human resource in such a way that it advances the development of Jamaica? I also believe that there must be a plan that looks at the industry that can absorb a significant amount of the rural poor. And I really believe that agriculture is that industry, because that industry has the ability to absorb a significant amount of the rural population of the ordinary Jamaican. And I'm not just talking about farming, but along the value trade, we're talking about agro-processing. And if we get our people buy into that vision, then I believe a significant number of persons, those that don't have the skill set, that don't have a university degree, they cannot be left out of the equation of development because they themselves want to make progress with their lives. But what are the opportunities that are available for them to make progress with their lives? And so I'm saying to us that a rigid and comprehensive agricultural rural development plan must be articulated, that it is so comprehensive that it will be able to absorb a lot of the rural ordinary citizens. Because as Professor Clayton Christensen said, you and I have jobs in our lives to be done. And at best, currently, some of us are just making do with the little that we have. And some are suffering wants and needs because they simply can't afford the high cost of living. If you go to the supermarket, you take up two things, you wonder when they quote you the cost for those two things. And every Jamaican is feeling the pinch of it. Every Jamaican is also feeling the pinch of the poor infrastructure, particularly the road condition. And I've seen where the government articulate or set aside one of the biggest budget for road rehabilitation, which I must commend where that is concerned. But it needs to go beyond that. We need to have a plan now for micro development that affects the ordinary Jamaican. And I really believe that the solution to Jamaica's low growth and development is to be found in the rural sector, is to be found in the development of the agro processing industry, of the agricultural industry. I've seen where the World Bank has shifted its focus to now even focus on agriculture. So they're seeing the need that this is a industry that can bring about the transformation that we desire. And so I'm saying to our leaders, let us shift the focus now on the ordinary citizens. How do we allow them to make progress and give them access for opportunity? And I believe if you take into account what I said earlier about the community, the felt need of the citizens, if you take into account the jobs, the needs that arise in the citizen's life, and what is it that they are using to solve those needs now, they're basically making do and some are doing without. If the policies and the agendas address these concerns, the jobs to be done in the lives of ordinary Jamaican, and the needs that, and a need that is so significant that impacts a large proportion of the population, then I believe that will be the candidate that will emerge as the winner, as the prime minister, as the party. So guess what? Let us build Jamaica. One Jamaica. Forward forever. Bless you. Thank you for joining. And we look forward for you to join in the next episode.